So this video is Axis Empires, and we're starting now in the winter of 1941, November, December turns. And as usual, we'll be starting on the European map. And so the Axis strategy for the winter of 1941 is mobilization limits. And we have General Winter that has now entered in like he historically did. And there is a quote on this card from Adolf, and he allegedly said, "Today I'm head of the strongest army in the world, the most gigantic air force, and a proud navy. The German people recognizes the decisive hour of its existence." End of quote. And this card, mobilization limits, adds 6 Volkssturm infantry units directly into the force pool, and then 4 infantry corps are deployed to the map. The card also has a political event segment, and rolling on this table, Germany is forced to make a mandated attack. And this attack is going to be launched against the forces in Moscow. So the picture that I have here is from last turn. I don't have a picture of the current situation, but it's close. And of course, the attack doesn't go well. Both sides suffer heavy losses. Of course, that favors the Soviets. The attack on Moscow is redoubled during the combat phase, and both sides suffer heavy losses again. And then finally, an attack is launched against the town of, I don't know how you pronounce that. And it's near Moscow. Both sides are damaged from this. The Germans also launch attacks in Greece against Athens. Both sides suffer attrition from this. And then in North Africa, the DAK headquarters attacks Tobruk, but the attack is repulsed. And both sides have expended all of their air support in North Africa at this point. So then we go on to the Western Allies part of the turn. The Western Allies play the historical strategy Operation Crusader. And on this card we have a quote from Winston Churchill where he said, "We shall never descend to the German and Japanese level. But if anybody likes to play rough, we can play rough too. Hitler and his Nazi gang have sown wind. Let them reap the whirlwind." End of quote. So this strategy allows Great Britain to place the 8th Army in the delay box, which they do, and then they get to deploy 1 infantry unit and 1 armor unit to the map. And then I had the Western Desert Army launch a counterattack near Gazala, and they end up driving DAK all the way back almost to Benghazi, as you can see in the picture here. Then we go on to the Soviet Union's turn, and their strategy is Siberian reserves released. And I don't have a map picture for this, but you can see a depiction here. And we have a historical note on this card. It's a quote from Joseph Stalin. "The German invaders want a war of extermination against the Soviet Union. Very well then. If they want a war of extermination, they shall have it." So this card allows the VDV airborne unit to be placed directly into the force pool, along with the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th Siberian armies. And additionally, the Soviet Union deploys a large number of ground forces, 2 tank units, and 18 infantry units are placed directly on the map. So I was able to strengthen the position around Moscow, and there were no counterattacks. So that brings November and December of 1941 in Europe to a conclusion. So now we're going to go over to the Daisenso map and see what happens in the winter of 41 in the Pacific. I think you know what happens. As expected, the Japanese government plays the historical strategy East Wind Rain. And the Strike South plan for war is adopted. And then we have a quote from Yamamoto. This is a famous quote. "We can run wild for 6 months or a year, but after that, I have utterly no confidence." So the Allies roll on the surprise attack table, and the result is raiders discovered. So a carrier fleet is sent to the delay box, and the Pacific theater is now at total war. The Allies are at war with the Empire of Japan. So the Soviet Union is still in a neutrality pact. So this strategy is allowing Japan to mobilize more infantry units and to activate carrier fleet and additional naval transports. So then Operation Z goes into effect, and as a result, Yunnan is now at war with Japan. The United States Navy is hit, as it historically was, at Pearl Harbor, and its surface fleet goes into the delay box. Then the Japanese commanders place some marine beachhead markers for landings in the Dutch East Indies and Malaya, and additionally some infantry units are moved. Then the Japanese forces land at Balikpapan, Batavia, and Singora, and in Indochina. You can see a depiction of this in the pictures here, where we have troops in Malaya, although you can see in Singapore we still have the Allied unit there, and you can see the activity in Siam and as well. The Japanese use the Tatsugiki marker. You can see that in this next picture, and they place it in Wuhan, declaring it an open city. And the Chinese nationalists are routed there, and they end up falling back to the south. You can see in the picture there, the main Chinese defense now is operating out of the city of Changsha. And Wuhan is finally cracked. That was a long time coming, wasn't it? This next picture, you can see the landings in Borneo, and you can see there's a green strategic location there, which is going to contribute to the Japanese efforts toward victory. Well, next we're going to go to the Allies segment, and they reveal their strategy. It is Pacific mobilization. And we have a quote on this card from Winston Churchill. "After the outrages they have committed upon us at Pearl Harbor, in the Pacific Islands, in the Philippines, in Malaya, and the Dutch East Indies, it becomes difficult to reconcile Japanese action with prudence or sanity. What kind of people do they think we are?" End of quote. So with this strategy, the West is mobilizing for war. Then the British deploy a Commonwealth unit in India as a result of this card. The United States places an infantry unit in the Philippines. And then the Nationalist Chinese mobilize some replacements in Canton. Then we go to the Soviet Union part of the turn, and their strategy is Siberian troop transfer. So the Soviet forces in the Far East are starting to get sent to Europe. And this card also allows the Soviet Union to add 3 replacements units into the Far East deployment box. And these use railroad movement and move toward the Pacific region. And that brings the winter of 1941 to a close. So now we're going to go on to January and February of 1942, and we're going to go back to the European map for this. Germany is still using their same strategy limited mobilization, and they end up with a command failure during their political event segment. So that command failure is placed in central Russia, and it messes up the entire area for the Germans. Nonetheless, the German forces do press on in Greece, and they finally capture Athens, as you can see in the picture here. Not pictured are German armies in Crimea, which are attacking, and they end up driving the Soviet army toward the Kerch Straits. And then there's another battle in the Soviet Union in Kursk, and that destroys a Russian army as well. Then we go to the Western Allies portion of the turn, and they attack German forces in Cyrenaica in North Africa. That attack is repulsed, and the Western Desert Force ends up retreating toward Tobruk. Then we go on to the Soviet portion of the turn, and they simply are reorganizing their defenses, and that includes setting up a supply route through the Kerch Straits and connecting those isolated troops. That brings January, February of 1942 on the European map to an end. So now we're going to go back to the Pacific map. So Japan is continuing its east wind reign and its invasions, and it makes landings on the Philippines and the Dutch East Indies. Several ports are secured. The Japanese forces in China also attack the next city along the railroad line. You can see in the picture here, it is Changsha. And the Chinese put up a stiff fight, and the attack is repelled. Meanwhile, we go to the Commonwealth part of the turn, and they have forces in India that are marching toward Rangoon, but these are way too late to have any effect at this point. I mean, Malaya is in serious trouble. The United States lands some troops to Midway, and then the troops in the Philippines hunker down. You can see the Philippines in this picture here in the sort of right center of the map. And they have been infiltrated, of course, by the Japanese, as has Borneo and the Dutch East Indies, Malaya, and it's really going great for the Japanese here right now. Then we go to the Soviets. They basically on the Pacific map are just doing troop movement in the Far East, and that's about it. But that brings the January, February 1942 turn to a close. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned if you'd like to see what happens in the spring of 1942. Have a great day.